Hello, great people. Welcome to the first episode of the Rising Again Mental Awareness podcast. And here we'll be analyzing how adverse childhood experiences affect your early adulthood life. So, basically, you know that people tend to grow up in environments which affect how they perceive life, they perceive themselves and the people around them, the energy they carry, and how they react to different circumstances that occur to them at different occasions in life. So, let me begin off by just reading a quote from Carol S. Dweck. It says, if parents want to give their children a gift, the best thing they can do is to teach their children to love challenges, be intrigued by mistakes, enjoy effort, and keep on learning. That way, their children don't have to be slaves of praise. They will have a lifelong way to build and repair their own confidence. So this gives us a kind of flashback on why I named the podcast as Rising Again. So my focus or objective is on that young person technically in their teens or adulthood life, who is experiencing the challenges that are most vastly from how they grew up, the kind of environment they grew up. So it's just a way to help us understand how we can overcome the different limitations, the different self-sabotage circumstances that we've intentionally or unintentionally placed ourselves into, and also how to figure out our own purposes and become people of valor, skills, and value to the society. So let me give you a little story about John, as I've already done anyway. So John is 22 years old. John is in his final year in campus. John is technically staying indoors a lot of time. He doesn't go out, but in his house, John is not doing something productive, but he's devoting most of his time on gambling, taking alcohol. He's addicted to weed and cigars. He watches porn and he masturbates. So John tries one day and he's like, I'm tired of this life and I want to create a new life for myself. So John decides that from this day, I'll stop doing these bad habits. I'll break free from the bad habits I've engaged into and I'll try to redefine my life. But as soon as John does this for the first day, he goes on for the second day, but just on the same night, John relapses into the previous person he's been. He finds himself watching pornography. He finds himself still smoking weed. But he had just promised himself that he wants to remodel his life. So John is confused. He feels depressed. He feels anxious about life and he doesn't know what to do. John seeks out help from other people around him, but he doesn't get a clarity of what he's supposed to do. So John decides that he's fed up with life and he commits suicide. So first of all, I want to tell you that the issues about mental health and adverse childhood experiences are so sensitive. So if you're experiencing such adverse or chronic symptoms or the severe symptoms, kindly seek help from qualified or certified counselors and psychologists. Do not just stay indoors, because when you stay indoors you won't find help, but when you go out there, there's so much help you could get. So technically, I'll just read a research by PubMed and how it shows how different childhood experiences affect how we grow up as people. So they say that, for example, individuals with more types of ACEs, that is adverse childhood experiences, also have more health problems in adulthood, such as poor self-esteem, they smoke, they take alcohol, and they ultimately fall into depression. Then they also talk about this aspect of which I'll just get into after a short time. The first 5 years of life have been identified as critical, critical for cognitive, emotional, and social development. Then they say a longitudinal study found that positive functioning is as an aspect of how you relate with yourself. Either you're pessimistic or optimistic. Can you be resilient? Can you handle your emotions? Can you perceive your world in a good way or in a bad way? So positive is more about this person who looks composed. They are confident about who they are. So that is the aspect of positive functioning. So I'll go back. Let me just have the statement once more. So a longitudinal study found that positive functioning in adolescence predicts inclined likelihood of a diagnosis or inclined or induced likelihood of a diagnosis of alcohol abuse and dependence at age 21. So they are technically trying to tell us, God forbid, but I don't like basing my videos on research. I just want to talk as real as I am. So they are technically telling you or showing you how your experiences over time compute or compound to predict the kind of person you'll become in future. So if you've read The Compounding Effect, or if you've read Atomic Habits by James Clear, he talks about the compounding effects of behaviors. So, and he talks about the automatic response. So now let me just go back to our discussion, and we are talking about how adverse childhood experiences affect your early adulthood life. So if you've grown up in a setting where maybe it was a dysfunctional family, or you had to win love and validation by, for example, trying to work so hard in school, you had to show your parents that you could earn their love by doing some things in the way they wanted. So it's like you had to follow orders around. Or maybe you didn't grow up with this sense of direction, especially from fathers. Mothers also play a critical role in life, but your father, if your father validates you, you'll end up as a confident person. You'll be able to manage pressure, you'll be resilient, and you can do hard stuff consistently. But if you didn't grow up with a father, which is not your fault anyway, so you find that you are too anxious about life. And for example, if you grew up in an environment that was maybe you are subjected to domestic violence, and you are helpless, seeing your mom around maybe being battered by your father, you'll find that when you grow up, you tend to have this perception about how the world works. For example, you believe that falling in love is a sign of weakness, because then when you're vulnerable, it's a chance to people, like you're showing people a position or an opportunity for manipulation, and they can easily come in and use that to their advantage. Okay, so let's just continue. And furthermore, if you grew up as a child who had been neglected, or maybe you are so much unfairly compared to your siblings, maybe there's one sibling in your family that to your parents was good at everything, or maybe they performed well in academics, and so they used to get more attention from your parents than you did, and so you had to hide yourself because anyway you are not recognized, and so you had to find a way of keeping yourself busy. So you find that when you grow up, you'll kind of feel like your needs are not so important, so you'll sacrifice yourself, you'll sacrifice your own interests just to make other people feel comfortable. And most likely you find that such kind of people end up as people pleasers, and I've been there. I've been trying to do things just to win validation from people. I tried so hard to please people until I realized that at the end I was just doing myself so much harm, and I had to find an alternative, because being nice is not an option in life, and it's not actually good to yourself. And actually, anyone who allows you to be nice to them is not just telling you the truth, or maybe they are not genuine about being friends or being relational with you. So we will go through the advanced childhood experiences. Let me talk about self-confidence. So you find that there are some people who grew up in a family where maybe there was so much dysfunction in the family. Your parents were not so attentive to your needs. You had to win the assertion or the validation by trying to do work on something. So growing up, you didn't have the sense of origin or the pivot of origin. So because your family is your first sense of origin, so how they treat you will determine how your perception about yourself in the universe. So if there are these kids who have grown up in well-nurtured families, maybe their parents are together, and there's this person who has grown up in a family where the parents maybe divorced, and it's not your fault anyway, so you don't have to feel bad about this. The parents divorced, or the family didn't just work, but the parents maybe were together, but one of your parents was not performing their obligations. Let me say the typical deadbeat term. So then you grow up with some void, and you find that the mistake that most of the young people make is that they try to fill this void with something else. So for example, if you have been a young person, let me talk of men, who has grown up in a dysfunctional family, there's this void that will be in your heart or in your space as you grow up, and you find that some people will try to date as many girls as they want, or spin the wheels, as Rollo Tomasi talks about in his book The Rational Male. So they try to do that, then still they just realize there's that deep feeling that they can't feel, so they're trying to escape the reality. Or some people have engaged in alcohol, they smoke weed and cigar. It's not your fault, but that is not the kind of life you want for yourself anyway. Like, what is the kind of life you want for the future you? Like, will you be proud of yourself? For example, if I put you in 2030, will you be proud of yourself, of the younger person you are right now, looking at what you're doing? For example, if you're taking alcohol, you're binging on food, you're binging on anything, you are beating yourself up, you are breaking your promises to yourself. So that's why I need you to handle the deep core. So if you are any person going through these challenges, if you're any person who has had a damaged childhood experience and it really affected the kind of person you've grown into, for example, you don't have self-esteem, you feel like you hate yourself, literally, because I've been there. I hated myself so much. I didn't feel like I was of value anyway, because that is what I grew up knowing, because I didn't have anyone to tell me they loved me. I didn't have anyone to tell me they were proud of me. And the only way I could win my parents' attention was by working hard in school. So that's why I worked so hard that I could join law school and prove to them that I was maybe smart. So you find that you have to work so much to prove to people who should love you unconditionally that you matter. So that is the same sequence you tend to replicate in the environment you live. And let me now maybe divert into the field of dating. Maybe in your previous life, you've dated someone who has either been kinda insecure, or they are too clingy, or they are too anxious about what you might be doing. So they tend to call you every time. They don't give you the space. They tend to perceive that you're cheating. They're like on your case every time, so there's no security. They don't believe or trust you. So you might realize that, or you might be that person in a relationship currently. You realize that you need to heal. There's no escape route. There's no shortcut. I won't pamper you. I won't pamper your ego with that. You just need to fix your life. And the only way you can do this is, so I'll give you a template on the things you need to do. So first of all is awareness. And that comes with acceptance. You have to audit your life as a person. Ask yourself, or look at your life and say, I accept that I've been going through this, and the only way to fix my life right now is by addressing the voids that have been in existence in my early childhood life. Might it be you're struggling with self-confidence? Might it be that you've been neglected by you'd been neglected by your parents, or you are compared unfairly to your siblings, or your needs were not so important compared to the other people, or maybe one of your parents was not present in your life, and so you don't feel like you belong to some important place, and that is affecting your self-worth. So go back, analyze the root cause, accept the situation, and be aware. For example, I went back to my life, I looked at it, and I was like, I didn't grow up with the validation of my father. I didn't grow up with the direction or with the proper mentoring that I needed. And this is now affecting the person I'm becoming. I am people pleasing. I prejudice my own interest or needs just to make other people feel comfortable and wanted. The only way I can feel loved is by trying to outdo what people think I should be doing. And I also fell into pornography and masturbation addiction just to numb or to feel better, because that is the only escape route I had. So I felt like this was enough. I wasn't happy of the person I was anyway, and I was like, enough is enough. So I accepted the situation. This was by help. I read some book called Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty, and he was talking about mental health awareness, detaching from our past, and healing from trauma. So that book literally helped me, and that was in sometime in June 2021. And so from that time I've been on this journey of self-development. It's not been consistent. Sometime I relapsed and went back into the degenerate version of the person I was, but I was committed and eager, and I was also kind and patient with myself. So first of all, be aware and accept the situation. Secondly, you have to detach from that identity. So for example, if you think that you are not important just because your parents were not available in your life or they were not present, then you have to accept the past and make peace with the past, and realize that it doesn't have anything to do with you. You didn't have anything to contribute to that. So just detach from that identity you've placed on yourself. Then 3, do not isolate. Seek help from others. If your situation is so chronic, you can seek help from counselors or psychologists. Ultimately, I've been following Benjamin Zulu for a while, and his advice has helped me, and he's a certified counselor or psychologist and a life coach. So maybe you could check his YouTube channel, and maybe you can book a session with him. So after you seek help, and let me just be cautious about seeking help. Make sure that the people you're seeking help from can be trusted. Do not vent or release these personal issues to people who do not have the best interests in your heart, of you in their hearts, or your best interests in their heart, because technically they'll tell everyone about this, and it might worsen or escalate the struggle that you're going through presently. So you seek help. Then so by detachment, I did a lot of journaling. I've journaled a lot of books. I have them at my place. Maybe with time, anyone who wants to connect and know more about this, and maybe realize how they can also detach from their past and the identity, the pathetic identity they have about themselves, you can just inbox me. I'll give you my number in the chat so that we can see how we can help each other. So after detachment, you now have also to, because identity just doesn't come by detachment. So if you've detached from that previous version of the person you are, then you realize that there's a hollow. So what do? There's a void of identity. So it's like you will suffer from self-identity crisis. So you have now to replace these bad habits you've been engaging in with good habits. For example, I started going to the gym. I started journaling. I've been meditating for 3 years right now. I have been reading self-development books. read a couple of books. The best book I've read is 12 Rules for Life by Professor Jordan B. Peterson. I've read The 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma. There is also another book I've read which has also helped me, is called The Way of the Superior Man by David Dida. So this is how you detach. After detachment, I say you also seek help if it doesn't work on your own, because some people can do it on their own, but if it's so severe, you can't work it out solely on your own. Then, after detachment and seeking help, you also have to replace these bad habits with good habits, because if you don't replace them, then you'll technically go back to the person you are, and you'll still have a degenerate identity or a pathetic perception of who you are. So after building these good habits with bad habits with good ones, you also have to, I just have to confirm, you also have to let go, because at some point you'll realize that when you're doing this, you're doing the rebuilding version. You'll at some point go back to that version of the person you are. So you have to be fair to yourself, but you have to learn to let go. Make peace with the past. For example, if your parents were not available in your life, or maybe they neglected you, you just have to forgive them. Maybe they also went through the same struggles while they were young and they didn't know how to raise you. So because even if you don't forgive them, it won't help. You'll be worsening the situation. And I believe everyone here wants to become a parent, and it would be so unfair for you to transfer your trauma to your kids just because you didn't make peace with your past. Then, as I said last, be patient with yourself, because it's gonna be hard work. It's gonna be dirty work, especially about healing and detaching from the identity you have about yourself. It's not gonna be easy, and sometimes you'll relapse. You'll find yourself breaking from the good habits and going back to the bad ones. But attach yourself to a community of good people, maybe people who have also been in this journey, and just believe in yourself. Be patient, but also don't be too reckless. Like, sometimes you have to push yourself towards the edge to realize the value meant for you. Otherwise, I appreciate so much. I know I might not have touched everything about the adverse childhood effects, and I'll come back with more information in a different episode. So it's been a pleasure to have you. Kindly like, comment, share, subscribe, and humbled. God bless you so much, and see you on episode 2.